Thank you, Dale. I have been bird watching. I started in the 40s when I lived on the west side of Milwaukee in Wauwatosa, and the Milwaukee Public Museum had bird hikes on Saturday mornings, and we used to go on those in various parks around the Milwaukee County area. I started taking pictures in the 60s when I got a Honeywell Pentax 35 millimeter slide camera, and I got a 200 millimeter lens for it, and started doing bird pictures. I was still using that camera when we moved to Algoma in 1991, and used it for several years here. And then around 2000, I started getting into digital cameras. First ones were kind of clunky, then they got smaller, and then they got fancier. And for the last 2 years I've been using this one, which is a Nikon P900. It's a super zoom. It's got an 83 times zoom on it, and we'll also take close-ups of flowers, but it does have that zoom on it, which is very helpful. When you get out to that much zoom, it's hard to hold it steady. So you take a lot of pictures, and hopefully some of them are sharp. It's something that 3 out of 4 pictures or more are a little blurry. So I take, with the digital, you know, you can take hundreds of pictures and throw out 99 of them. And that's basically what happens. I will go out and take 400 or 500 pictures in one day, and hopefully get a couple of good ones out of it. So it's been interesting. This actually is my 13th digital camera. Started with little goofy ones, and then they keep getting better. And I've had this one for 2 years, and I've taken I think 59,000
Down arrow.
pictures on it. I gotta get the right side though. There's the camera. Yeah, 59,786 pictures in just 2 years. We have many birds here. Some of them we see every year. Some of them I've only seen once in 27 years. So you never know what's going to be coming. These are birds that are here year-round. Blue jays, geese. We have a flock of 200 or 300 Canada geese that stay here 12 months of the year. You think of the Canadas going to Canada. The ones that are here all winter never leave. They raise their young here. And there's also a flock of mallards that's 30 or 40 of them that are here all winter. Chickadees are here, of course, crows, goldfinches, herring gulls, house finches, house sparrows, the mallards, mourning doves, nuthatches, pheasants, ring-billed gulls, turkeys, woodpeckers are all hardy and stay right here. In the winter, water is a problem for birds. So we have a heated bird bath that we put out, and there's 2 house finches and a goldfinch enjoying that. That's the nuthatch, red-breasted nuthatch. So we have feeders out. The red-bellied woodpecker, you usually don't see the red on its belly, but there it is. You've got the right angle. There's just a pinkish wash that's the red belly. This is a hairy woodpecker. This is both of these are out of our kitchen window, sitting up in the tree. And the brown creepers that go up and down and up and down and up and down the tree trunks, looking for what's hiding under the cracks in the bark. There's a chickadee. Again, a feeder outside our kitchen window. And the goldfinch, that's a summer plumage. Winter, they're very drab, but they keep the black wings. And a house finch. In the spring, probably in a couple of weeks, we put out orange halves for various birds. Orioles like them. So do the house finches, so do the catbirds, so do the grosbeaks. There's a cardinal. In the spring, they like to sit up in the very top of the tree, and they're proclaiming that's their territory, is what they're doing. I'm the king of this this yard. These are the Canada geese that raise their young here. This is out at Olson Park. And we're marching their little ones down the boat ramp out at Olson Park. And one of them decided he wasn't going down the ramp, he was going boom, over the edge of the side of it. Here's mallards. The two on the right were in the harbor down here on thin ice. It was moving as they were walking on it, so they were kind of walking very carefully. But they don't care if they get wet, so obviously. The herring gulls and the ringbills are here all winter. I've seen them out on the breakwaters with snow on their backs. And they'll just shake it off and get up when it's time to get up. And the turkeys. This is when they're strutting and displaying. Most of the time they don't look that fancy, but these were really strutting. And this was right on the west edge of town, just off of Fremont. We have birds that are only here in the winter, or pretty much only. A lot of diving ducks that come to the harbor here to get fish. Well, come to the lake shore. Buffleheads are diving ducks that eat fish. Golden eyes are very common out here. The scops are out here. Juncos in your yard. Long-tailed ducks usually out in the lake. I did get a picture of one in the harbor, but they're usually out farther. Mergansers are often here, all three kinds of them. Pine siskins we have at our feeders. Redpolls, those we have good numbers of redpolls this year, and siskins. Snow geese just pass through; they go south. Scops, scoters. Scoters nest in the Arctic, but they winter on the lakes here. Snow buntings and the snowy owls that come down. That's the siskin song. That redpoll was really red. Had the red wash on his front and the very red cap. Siskins are just kind of streaky. They have a little yellow under the wings and above the tail. This is the snow bunting. That one was out on the south breakwater. I saw this little bird out on the cement on the breakwater. Walked out. That's what it was. Finding bugs by the weeds on the breakwater. That's a crossbill. Don't see them very often, but they do come around. That's a white-winged crossbill. Bufflehead ducks, the female on the left and the male on the right. Very striking colors. They're not very big. The golden eyes are one of our most common winter ducks on the harbor here. Female on the left, male on the right. Like a lot of ducks, they do a real dance, the males do. And they'll start doing their mating dances in January. They're not they're not going to mate and lay eggs in January, but I guess they get in practice. The scops are interesting. These were both in the harbor down here. They are eating mussels. How they manage to eat mussels, I don't know, but they seem to take great delight. And the female there, I think, has 3 of them that are kind of, stuck together. And so she couldn't swallow them right away. She had to work at it. And then the male has, again, eating mussels. They somehow they manage it, and they seem to enjoy it. These are the big mergansers, the common mergansers. These happen to be up in Sunset Park in Sturgeon Bay, but they do come in the harbor down here. And the red-breasted mergansers. They do the craziest dances on the right there, the males. They'll stick their heads up and their mouths open and dip the front end, and they'll do all kinds of gyrations. They have a very striking bright red eye. You look at that one on the left there, the eye is as red can be. We also have redheads around here, often on a large flock out on the lake. Occasionally they come in close, but a lot of times they're way out. Ringnecks, we seldom get them in the harbor here. I've seen them a couple of times, but they're in the Sunset Park up in Sturgeon Bay a lot. They seem to like that little lake area there. This is a long-tailed duck, what they used to call old squaw. Beautiful duck. This one was in the harbor off of the parking lot. I think that was November, last November. Right along there, very striking duck. And this is the hooded merganser. The male has that crest that it can raise and lower. And sometimes it's up high and sometimes it's not. And then they do a dance too. That's part of their mating dance. And sometimes you'll see 4 or 5 males around one female, and they're all doing this crazy dance. Look at me, look at me. Scoters are an Arctic duck that's here in the winter. For several years we had the right one here, the white-winged scoter. That's a female. That was taken from the 2nd Street Bridge. We had the white-winged scoters for 3 or 4 years that were here in the winter, and stayed until we had the bird celebration a couple of years. The other one, the one on the left, is the one that's been here the last 2 winters. That was, again, feeding right off of the point. And the last 2 years we've had the female black scoter right off the point. That one left a month or so ago. Snow geese. This was a flock off of Crescent Beach a couple of years ago. And those are all snow geese. They have the white ones with the black wingtips, but the others are still snow geese. They have 2 color phases or more, but they're all the same species. They just pass through here. Tundra swans, somebody told me this morning that there was a flock of tundra swans on the river along 42 this morning. They are around. They pass through, and that's their calls. This picture was in a field west of Grace Lutheran Church. in a pond in a field. And last August, somebody called me from the youth club here and said there's a big bird down right out here, right across the parking lot here. And that's a trumpeter swan. It's the biggest waterfowl. It's 5 feet from bill to tail. And somebody told me that there was a pair that nested somewhere in the county. Dale said he hadn't heard that, but this was August, so they were around in the summer. And the snowy owls. This was in January, a couple years ago, on a picnic table in Cary Field. They come around. That's a young one. The older ones get pure white, but the young ones have that black on their feathers. And we have birds that are only here in the summer. Bonaparte's gulls, the little gull, catbirds, egrets, herons, hummingbirds, indigo buntings, orioles, pelicans, plovers, sandpipers, swallows, tanagers, terns, towhees, warblers, and wrens. A couple of years ago we had a flock of, I think, about 10 of these in our yard. Beautiful, beautiful birds. Of course, the females aren't that bright, but the males surely are. Reddest red you could imagine. There's also a summer tanager, which is not nearly as bright. Only saw that one once. Most years we do have the indigo buntings. I think we had one that nested one year. Bright, bright blues. And again, that's the orange halves that we put out. And the orioles, they'll be coming in May. This is a less common oriole. It's an orchard oriole. You see the black pattern on its face there. So it's a little different than the more common Baltimores. And the grosbeaks, again the spring arrival, and again on the orange half. That's the white-throat's song. These come through again in the spring. They'll be here shortly. And the song sparrows. These, I think we have some that nest along the lake shore. They're always sitting out there singing. And they really love to sing. So they're well named. Little bitty bird, golden-crowned kinglet. That's on our raspberries behind our garage. Brown thrasher. Does everything twice. The cedar waxwings. This was up in a crabapple tree, I think. Once I've seen this in our yard, right outside our window. Beautiful little warbler in the spring. The warblers are basically bug eaters, so they don't come to your feeders. But this one was sitting in a tree right outside our kitchen window. Some of the warblers will come to a suet block when they can't find enough bugs. Wrens, of course, are another bug eater. And this, we have one in a wren house out in front of our house. Red-eyed vireo. This, again, just showed up outside of our kitchen window. And never seen one again. But pretty little bird. Hummingbirds we have every year. Have feeders out, and then we have flowers that they like. Those are crocus mias, and they like those. Catbird, again, that's the orange halves. These are around all summer. We have, I think they're nesting in our bushes. Barn swallows, these are down at the harbor. They sit on the posts and on the rope along the edge of the parking lot down in the harbor, catching bugs that are right over the surface of the water. They'll be swooping back and forth across the river and around the harbor. And the pelicans. It's kind of funny to watch these. They were in our harbor. At times we've had 200 of them down there when the alewives come in. And they have these great big beaks and they're scooping up the little alewives. They scoop them up, put their beak way up and swallow them. Whoops. Pelicans, what's going on? Yeah. Pelicans are very large birds. An eagle has a wingspread of around 6 or 7 feet. These guys have a wingspread of 9 feet. And they're marvelous flyers. Those huge wings, they can soar. That's a 9-foot wingspread.
Have you ever seen the pelicans fish as a group?
I have at the De Pere Dam. They'll form a half circle and they'll all scoop together.
I was at Point Beach last fall, north of the concession stand in the evening. And I think what was thrashing around, making the water foam, and it looked like they were just like forming a circle and all coming
Yeah.
in and diving.
Yeah, below the dam at De Pere, they often make a half circle and they all scoop together. I don't know if somebody gives them a cue or what. They all go together, scoop. That's a female wood duck, and she had 2 little ones up. That's in Sunset Park at Little Lake in Sturgeon Bay. They're quite often in that lake there. Horned grebes in their breeding plumage. In the winter they're just black and white. But in breeding season they get that fancy hairdo. And again they have a bright red eye. Little pie-billed grebe. When our kids were little, we called them up and downs because they're always diving. And they, I think, in the winter they lose that ring around the bill. Greater yellow legs. This was up in Door County in a flooded field. Great blue heron, often along the shore here or along the river. I think this one was up at Sturgeon Bay. The Bonapartes, they come in the summer. They're a smaller gull, usually in flocks of like 100 or so. Again, that's the breeding plumage. In the winter they lose a lot of the black. Great blackback gull, a large, well these are both large gulls. Blackbacks usually just see 1 or 2, and the same with the glaucus, with the white back. Very large gull. Those are 2 ringbills in front of it. They look like midgets. And the Caspian terns. We have these every year on the beach down here. That's one of their mating rituals. He'll strut around with that fish, and maybe she'll take it, maybe she won't. but they'll make all kinds of noises. They're a beautiful bird, but they squawk. They have that really squawky voice. And they will mate right on the beach down here. They don't care. Common tern, a lot smaller than the Caspians. And some of the sandpiper types, the Dunlin with the black belly, solitary sandpiper. The semi-palmated was down near the visitor center. The least ones were right out here. There was a log down on the beach down here. And a semi-palmated plover. Pretty little bird. Kind of like a small killdeer. And the eagles. They sit in the trees along the lakeshore, and we'll hear that talking to each other. In the winter, there'll be a pair sitting, and they'll go back and forth like that. The one on the right is taking off from the South Breakwater, right out here. The other one, there's a nest about 2 miles north of town, and he's sitting up near that nest. Well, actually across the road from it. Here is the nest. That nest is maybe 8-9 feet across or more. In the last 3 years, they have raised 3 chicks each of the last 3 years. And there they are. The picture on the left is June the 2nd last year, when they were all standing in the nest. The one on the right, there's a young one on the left and a young one on the right, and the other one's out of the picture. And the adult, which had come to feed them, that's the end of June when they're moving out onto the branches. They usually start flying a few feet in late June, and in early July they'll be going across the road and around. But they're as big as their parents at this point. That's a young one learning how to land in a tree, and that's something they have to learn. They flop this way and they flop that way, and finally they get it. They get their balance right. But they keep that dark head for several years. That's the merlins calling. The merlin on the left, little hawk, that's sitting on the roof of this building up above the gym. The other 2 are in our yard. The Cooper's is out by the lake, and the Sharpshin was feeding on one of the birds at our bird feeders.
Circle of life.
Yep. And the sandhills. The picture on the right is a pair that are doing that. They're calling. They have both their mouths wide open, making a lot of noise. That's along Highway S about 2 weeks ago, I think. Maybe just a week ago. Yeah, actually, I think that was Easter. Now, picture of the nest. I didn't take that. That's a stock photo. But they do just nest on the ground. There's the killdeer. Again, a ground nesting bird. And they will try and distract you away from their nest. They do the broken wing thing where they flutter along and try and get you to follow them.
Always at the community garden.
Oh, okay, yeah. This, a couple of years ago, we had a woodcock. Beautiful, beautiful bird. Very camouflaged except when they're in the snow. He was there in December, so he stood out and was very, very pretty. And I want to say thank you to everybody who calls and tells me about a bird to see. That picture of the snowy owl, somebody called us on a Sunday right about 1 o'clock, I think, and said there was a snowy owl out in the park. And I want to thank Dale for being one of the people that I would call up to say, what in the world is that? Because I don't know what it is. And the committee and the newspaper that will print pictures. So that's it. Anybody have any questions?
Where did you say that thunder swans were seen this morning?
On
Right out here.
42.
Yep, about 2 miles out of town.
Yeah, there it is.
Where the Ante comes fairly close to the
Yes,
road.
There's a
yeah.
bend of the
Sure
river
there,
that comes
and
close
They
there.
were sitting out there right in that bend.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Anybody else?
On that, on cranes, Bob, I
Yeah.
heard somebody say that, or some radio, that call that we hear is really both birds, one starting it and the other ending it. Is that true? Have you heard?
Well,
of
those
it?
two were both had their mouths wide open.
You
They're-
know,
they're
that it
both
really
calling.
isn't one call, but that it's both birds, one starting it and the other ending that, oh, you know,
Yeah, I'm sure it
rocket
varies
sound.
because
Yeah,
they seem to be doing it together.
yeah,
That's a bird that doesn't sound like any other bird.
no, pterodactyl.
Right, right.
Pterodactyl.
Well, they have
Is that
that.
technically a bird?
Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
You mentioned that on our bay ducks, the divers, that
Yeah.
they can be fish eaters.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had wondered about that, whether they were doing some vegetation, or I knew mergansers were fish catchers,
Yeah.
but pretty much all of those divers are capable of.
Yeah, the
feeding-
grebes and the golden eyes, the scops, they'll come up with fish. And I've seen a merganser with a fish that big, and they had to work for like 10 minutes to swallow the thing.
Thank you.
Bob, have you ever seen the loons on the river? I think generally late summer, early fall. Every now and then, you'll have a pair of loons that go. that come
I
down the
haven't,
river.
not here, but
Yeah, we've seen them.
they're a fascinating bird,
And then in Forestville, above the
Okay.
dam there.
really. Good.
um, But they don't stay long.
No?
Oh, okay, okay. Anybody else? Yeah,
The young, when the Canadians winter here,
yeah.
the young that they have, do they know how to fly south, or have they lost that?
They,
Because a parrot bird always shows them the first
Yeah.
year.
yeah, I think they'll stay with that flock. They won't go to another
So
flock.
they don't really know how to fly south then,
No, no,
because they've
no.
never been shown.
Yeah.
Well, but
The ones that are year-round here tend to be a little bigger than the ones that migrate.
Right.
Yeah, it's the giant geese, and they're non-migratory.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Were they
There's
always
other geese that come
non-migratory?
through that are.
What?
Were they always
Giant geese,
non-migratory?
Not migratory.
oh, okay.
It's just happened in recent years.
Good question, but I think so. They're, like I say, they're a little bigger. They used to call them giants. Now they don't really do that, but, and that's just, they're raised that way, and that's the way they are. If the lake really freezes over, they'll have to find some place where there's open water, but otherwise, they're here 12 months. Anybody else? Yeah.
I think this cold is bothering the birds, the snow.
Well, they hunker down and stay out of it when they can, and,
Not finding enough food.
yeah.
The snow is bad.
Yeah, we had a robin yesterday out hopping around the snow trying to find something, but, yeah, they manage, they find berries or something.
You know the staghorn sumac?
Yeah,
Yep.
The staghorn sumac fruit, those red fruits, that's kind of an emergency food for robins and bluebirds in spring.
yeah.
And I've seen them in,
They'll eat mountain ash berries too, and sometimes they get kind of drunk on those.
I've never seen so many black, red wings this year at the feeders grackles and,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Question.
Yeah.
We've seen a bird the last couple of days on the ground, that silhouette of which reminds me very much of the gnatcatchers I used to see in Missouri, but I'm not even sure they come through here. Is there something that you've seen, long-tailed, small, narrow body, that activity on the ground is strictly not like a sparrow or anything else in the last week? Because we're right on the shore. Well, frankly, again, like a blue-gray gnatcatcher.
Oh,
Does it have a white
They
breast?
nest up here, but it's a long time before they'll.
I
Yeah.
would think
Yeah.
so. That's why it didn't make sense
Yeah,
to me,
it's the
but I
only
don't know
one
what
that-
they
I know
are.
that nest up here.
We have thrush.
somebody told me there were tufted titmice around.
Yeah, these are two.
Not that.
This is like you take a mockingbird, shrink it down, but the silhouette is the narrow waist. You know, it's just not made like a titmouse or, it's, I just wondered. I have no idea what it is, but
I haven't seen it today.
Okay,
Right before the snows, we had a flock of thrush come through because I cleaned out my beds.
Oh.
And they were in there, and I think they turned every inch of that ground over.
okay.
Just like chicken, the dirt was flying all over the place, yeah. But now I don't know where they went, it's all covered.
Yeah. Looking for another place to,
I was about to say, if you have a bird that you can't identify, both Bob and Dale are pretty good at doing that. If you can snap a picture and send it,
Yeah.
we can send it to them and said, have at it, guys, try and figure out what it is.
oh, one thing you did say on your camera, you pretty much avoid messing with a tripod then with that. You just
with
go
birds, you
ball.
can't really. I use a tripod when I'm taking ships out on the lake, but birds are
Yeah.
too active. I do use it for the eagle nest.
Sure.
That's yeah, I use a tripod for the eagle's nest. Because it's across the field, it's not where you can get to it.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay.